here at the Gator Wesley Foundation, and I'm excited to tell you about tonight's Questions and Conversations video. It features Vance Rains, who's the pastor at First United Methodist Church of Orlando, and Joel, as they talk about what it means to really share your faith. Oftentimes in the church and in the world, the word evangelism kind of has negative connotation, makes us feel weird, but really, the word evangelism just means good news. And so we hope that you'll tune in and listen tonight as we talk about this really important conversation. Have a great week.
Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Joel over at the Gator Wesley Foundation. We are having conversations with good friends of ours this summer. We thought that a great way to engage our faith is to engage in good conversation. So I pray that if you're watching this and you want to plug into one of our small groups, that you do that. I want to introduce you today to a good friend of ours and a former Wesley Foundation director, Reverend Dr. Vance Rains, right?
Whatever.
And so I'm going to let Vance introduce himself a little bit, and then we'll get started into our conversation today.
Well, hey, everybody. Hey, Joel. Thanks for including me in this. Like you said, my name is Vance, and formerly campus minister, also an elder in the Florida Conference. I've served a number of churches. And a year ago, moved to Orlando to return to my home church, United Methodist Church of Orlando, where I serve as the lead pastor. I'm married to Kelly for almost 30 years next month, and we have two adult children, my daughter Melinda and my son John, and my daughter-in-law Ellie. So that's a little bit of our life.
Awesome. Well, one of the things that we're going to be talking about today is this word evangelism that a lot of folks have all sorts of opinions about, because this word has changed and morphed either from our political point of view or from some of the branding. I would even say that word has gotten. The other thing that's very unique to note is that Vance used to be the Wesley director at FSU. And so I even wrote on my notes today, we're talking about evangelism and FSU football, how to get a Gator fan to listen to a video. And so I hope the conversation's actually a lot more fun than that. Even though I heard we're not even going to play FSU this year. If the ACC follows through on their football, only playing a conference schedule. That's one way to get UF off of your schedule, Vance. I wonder if that was in their thoughts. And so whether late November we get to play FSU or not will be an interesting find in the next little bit. I know even worse than talking about evangelism and FSU football is talking about the possibility of not having a football season.
I know, right? One more casualty of a pandemic.
Yeah, man. And so there's all sorts of conversations that we've been having, Vance, about like these deep topics about our faith. And one of the things that we hadn't really talked much about was just this idea of what it really means to share your faith with someone, and how that looks. And you know, some people say, well, share your faith with someone, it means just tell them what to believe, right? Or share your faith with them means, hey, this is what I believe, so you believe that now. Can you talk or just open up a little bit about what it really means to share your faith with someone?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think you have to go back to the word, use the word evangelism, which is a bit of a tainted word now. It's seems to be associated with a particular theology or practice, religious practice, or even a politic that tends to be conservative and tends to be more, we think of churches that are maybe a little more narrow theologically, or a little more aggressive in their approach to invitation and so forth. But the word is a good word. Evangelism means good news. An evangelist is someone who shares the good news. And so I think you got to get to that. Like, what is it about our being followers of Jesus? What is it about calling ourselves Christian that is good news? Well, and what does it mean that it's good news for me, that I would want to share it with you, that I think it could be good news for you too? And so I think when we talk about sharing our faith, I think one of the things that intimidates and maybe offends is that we think it means I need to convince you that I'm right, and you're wrong, and I need to get you to think like I do, and that maybe I even need to put a little threat, that God won't really love you if you don't believe what I believe, but God won't really forgive you if you don't believe what I believe. Well, that doesn't sound like good news. That sounds like a threat. So, how do I live my life, communicate my faith in such a way that, people see, wow, I want some of that.
Absolutely. And when we do that, Vance, a lot of times when I find that I believe something and I find out that maybe you believe something else, and then I carry faith and I know you carry faith, what is the form or what is the way that then we can interact with other people's faith or other people's understanding of God, or non-understanding? What are some of the best places to do that?
I don't know if there is a best. I think it's relational. I've always struggled a bit with evangelism that's, going up to strangers. Maybe it works, but I don't know. I think it's best out of a relationship, so that I'm sharing with you good news because I sincerely am invested in you. Just as I would share anything else, if I care about you, if I'm interested in you, I might share any number of things. So I think it has to start relationally, and then it has to come out of that. I care enough about you that I want you to know about this. And I think when we love people and care about them, we move out of you being an agenda. You're my agenda, or you're, another notch in my belt, or you're, I'm genuinely interested in your life. And so that's why I'm sharing it. You asked about like people of other faith. When I was at FSU, there was a guy who was a Hare Krishna. Actually, he had gone to Florida. He had gone to University of Florida, and and was a Catholic. Had become converted to Hare Krishna, and moved to Tallahassee and did a daily lunch, vegetarian Indian lunch, on campus. It was cheap and really good, and so I would eat there a couple days a week. Well, we developed a really great friendship, and when things were slow and if I was alone, he'd come over and sit with me, and he would share with me, well, the Krishna teaches this. And, I wasn't about to become a Hare Krishna, but I found what he found in Hare Krishna beautiful. And a lot of the teaching was incredibly beautiful. And I got to the point where I'd say, Jesus said something like that in a parable, and we would talk about that. And neither of us were trying to necessarily convert the other. We were just sharing friends, beautiful things between friends, things that we both cared about, and there was space in our relationship to share that. Did he become a Christian? Nope. I didn't become a Hare Krishna. Nope. Was the kingdom present? I think so. Mm-hmm. I think so.
And we'll never know if something in that conversation breeds life, or takes his life in a different direction, or takes his life to encounter other people and lean into some of those thoughts and beings that he can help others. It's we don't. I sometimes I feel like this idea of evangelism or sharing our faith, I love how you put it, has an agenda, other than to share good news, and the good news that I've experienced, and finding a way to come into contact with the good news that you've experienced, or find a way to allow that to help me in my relationship with you, because I care about you. And my perspective brings me through my Christian tradition of that Jesus is a powerful, beautiful expression of love and caring and what we call salvation, when we want to share that with others. Why do you think it's important then to, you mentioned with your friend that's a Krishna, or anyone for that particular, why is it important to listen to them and understand their interpretation of faith or their interpretation of God as we share our faith with others?
Yeah, I don't even know if I can point to a particular passage of scripture, but I just personally believe that you shut doors when you don't treat people with honor and dignity and respect. That that if immediately you've confronted me with I'm wrong and you're right, then we're not dealing relationally anymore. That I've got to start out of a place of honor and respect for you, your journey, your story, and that I believe I can listen fully to that without that needing to be threatening to me. I may not, just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean that I have to feel unsure about who I am or where I am. And if you think about Jesus, I mean, he treated everyone with incredible respect that didn't theologically agree with him. The Samaritan woman at the well, Jews thought they were idolaters, and she said, where's the right place to worship? That's a theological conversation. But he treated her with dignity, and we probably think in that story that she probably wasn't treated with much dignity by many people. Or the story of the Roman centurion who comes to Jesus and says, my servant is dying, and you can say the word and he'll be healed. Well, a Roman centurion, he was an invader. He was a foreigner, probably an idolater, and Jesus ultimately says there is no greater faith in all of Israel than this man. That's pretty respectful of somebody that really is violating the first commandment. You shall have no gods before me. You shall not form a graven image. Probably as a Roman, he was violating those. There's no greater faith in Israel than this man. That's a lot of respect.
Mm-hmm. And
as they would have to. I think the society lacks that now.
And so, Vance, you might resonate with this. We're on a college campus, and you have a lot of people coming in from a lot of different perspectives, a lot of college students from different theological traditions, and I'll even say within the United Methodist Church, even if they land from one church to the next, you're coming to this central place. Why is it important within the community, either whether we're talking campus community or even more specifically a Gator Wesley community, which is, there's a lot of different faith traditions, a lot of folks that are exploring faith but haven't necessarily developed their own. Why is it important for our community or the community to be a safe space to share our expressions of faith with one another with that type of respect? What can we gain from that?
Yeah, I think the key word you just used is safe. That word really took on meaning for me as a campus minister as more and more LGBTQ students came into my office and behind closed doors said, I've never told anybody this before, and then I became the first, and as I was trying to figure that out, why am I the first so often? It was someone used the word safe. They said, well, you're perceived to be safe, that if I share this thing with this vulnerable side of me, that I may be fearful of condemnation, but I don't know what to do with, that they're looking for a safe place. Well, I think that's bigger than the LGBTQ conversation. I think a lot of us are wondering, are there places in the world that I can be myself? Are there places in the world that if you see the real me, you won't reject me? Are there places that I can be safe to question? Because there are a lot of faith communities you just have to accept. It's all about accepting the truth, right? And can I raise a question here and not be rejected? I mean, I think that's not the question. Are you going to reject me or not? I had an LGBTQ student ask me that, when she came out. Okay, does that mean you're going to kick me out? I'm like, of course, right? Of course not. You're family here, right? But I don't know that we all know that, because, by the way, not all families act that way either. So particularly as we're talking about issues of faith, we've got to create space to grow and to wrestle, and particularly at college, that's a kind of a developmental moment of life where we're beginning to say, the things I've been taught up to this point, are they true? Are they real? Do I, my mom believes them, my dad does, my church back home does, but do I really believe this? And maybe it's because a professor has questioned something, or a roommate has questioned something. Now I'd never have been asked this question. Where can I go and wrestle with this, and come to my own place with it, right? So I think that's why, places like Gator Wesley are so incredibly important, and that they be safe. There aren't a lot of safe places,
and it's a goal to create safe places. Heather and I wish to be a safe place, and the roles that we have, we hire staff, and we get to talk through that. But as soon as you enter a church, sometimes you encounter people that aren't necessarily safe. But what our goal is to create an atmosphere to explore our faith and have everyone feel loved, have everyone feel accepted, have everyone feel like they belong at the table. Is a goal of ours, and that they are who they are because they are a beautiful image of God, and God has made them just like they are.
Yeah.
And that's so hard. And for me, Vance, this is the next question I would have would be, as I'm exploring, because I'm not done yet, as I'm exploring my faith and I'm on my journey of faith, and I see students that come in, they're exploring and sometimes asking these tough questions. How do we share our faith when we're still figuring it out? Like I'm still wrestling with things, even in a pastoral role, with others.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is essentially the Christian faith. I mean, as soon as we think we've figured it out, then we're done. I mean, honestly, I expect my biggest aha moment it will be when I die. And, oh, this is what I was trying to explain. This is what I've been trying to live. Now I get it. And I hope that. But I mean, the Christian faith is a mystery. I've always said, every time I take a step forward in understanding, I find that it's like taking 3 or 4 steps back, because now the mystery is bigger than it was before. That if I ever think that I've got this wrapped up, I mean, Trinity, like God's a Trinity, 3 in 1, right? And that lives in me, and I can live in it. Like what? Jesus said the king, when he told parables, they said, why do you speak in parables? And he said, well, it's so that people who, hear, but they won't understand, they'll like what? So I don't think if we ever think that we've got to understand this to share it, then we better stop, because we're never going to. So we share what we understand. We share what we know. And we do that with everything, don't we? Like I don't know why certain ingredients go together to make a good cake. I don't understand that. But if I have a good recipe, why would I not share it with you? I don't know what they do at my favorite restaurant behind the scenes, in the back, but I know the plate of food that comes to me is delicious. Why would I not tell you that? This is delicious. I've been married 30 years. My wife is still mostly a mystery to me, but I'm sure glad. I think that again, is this, when we say evangelism and good news, is this just a doctrine that we've got to get right before we can share it? Or is it really good news to me? Has something about this become real enough that I think that probably it's going to be good for you too, because it's good enough for me.
Absolutely.
That was what I meant. Good. It's good.
And as we share that good news, and as we own it, and as we learn it, we also grow. Because sometimes you were talking about, sometimes I find a different cake recipe that tastes better, or I realize that there's an ingredient that's been missing all along. And so I got to be willing to say that, hey, let's explore this new idea or thought. Let's find new ways to love others. Oh my gosh, there's a whole group of things that are not here that would make this better. And I guess as we close up our time, I wanted to kind of keep this conversation just kind of talking about this idea. You mentioned this idea of invitation, this idea of acceptance, this idea of respect and honoring others. As we look about the concept, as we're about to begin a new semester here at UF, whether it's a lot of online stuff, whether we're going to be doing stuff, there's going to be a lot of freshmen people hitting campus. There's going to be a lot of folks that are seeking community where this type of safety, this type of conversation is important. What would it look like for either a community like this or within our own hearts that we are, what would it look like for us to be invitational? What would it look like for us to be a community where it is safe to share our faith and come to understand our faith in a beautiful, more complete way? Yeah.
I think I just honestly would say take the pressure off. And if your faith, if your participation at Gator Wesley, if your friendships at Gator Wesley are meaningful to you, I talk about them, share them, and it could come in a formal invitation, come with me to worship, or join me online for worship, or whatever it is. But it could also be as simple as a social media post. It could also be just wearing the last Gator Wesley T-shirt in public. It's just simply, I think we've got to take the pressure off this is life-giving to me, and so why would I put it, like Jesus said, my light under a basket? You just talked about football in the fall, right? None of us enter a football season with certainty of the outcome, but we don't hesitate to wear our favorite team's logo and to get excited and post about it. And why is our faith different? Why is our participation in the Christian community different? Why not, include if I can put a picture of my last cappuccino on Instagram, why not take a picture of my friends in our Gator Wesley shirts and put it on Instagram? If I'd go to a game with people, why would I not invite them to come with me to a cookout at Gator Wesley? The pressure's off. I think I don't have to convince them. I don't have to convert them. Just live a life that's engaging and invitational. That if I found something life-giving, that others might too, and it's a joy to share that.
Don't we wish that evangelism could be that? Live a life that is invitational, and live a life where we love other people. And it was just simple, and that's what we did. Some people are easier to love than others, and I get that. The only other comment I would do as we close is just this idea that maybe it's not the event that they invite. Maybe it's just out to a cup of coffee. Maybe it's just that text message saying, "Hey, caring about you. I hope your first class goes well." And engage. Maybe evangelism looks like just being a good human.
Yeah. Right.
It was that Brene Brown said it's all about being a good human to other humans, or that was in a book. She was actually interviewing someone about being a good human to other humans. I don't think it was Brene, but it was someone else. Well, Vance, you have been a role model to Heather and I. We have been in community with a lot of your community over the years. with a lot of those FSU Wesley students that have come through camp, a lot of those students that we've been to weddings together and sat across from one another and watched that, we have seen and experienced what some of that beautiful community that we've talked about looks like. And I know one of the blessings that you've had is being able to see that community, not just from their freshman days, but you've seen them all the way through. They're in their 30s and they have kids. And when those communities stick together, when those communities continue to be invitational, they're working in churches, they are serving in communities, they are working for nonprofits. Some of them are pastors and preachers. Some of them are engineers and lawyers. And I just want to say that this idea of sharing our faith, this idea of being in community and being an invitational and accepting an open community where people can figure out their journey of faith is something that lasts well beyond college.
Absolutely.
And I've appreciated your model and your witness with that, Vance.
Oh, thanks. It's been a pleasure.
Well, we are going to close out our time today, and I've just appreciated this brief conversation with Vance Rains over at First Methodist Church Orlando. We are excited, and hopefully, if anything, just a 7v7 flag football game against Florida State and Florida this year. If we can't play on the field, we will find a way to engage that rivalry. But we appreciate you, Vance. Look forward to talking with you soon.
All right. Thanks, Joel.
I want to